come to order at 7:04 p.m. This is the February 18, 2025 meeting for the Town of Southampton Landmarks and Historic Districts Board. Present are Stephanie Davis, William Hines, Susan Sherry Clark, Tim Ganettis, Jeff Gibbons, Vicki Kahn, Ed Wisnowski, Larry Jones, and Samantha Malone. This meeting is being conducted under Town Code and New York State law that provides for in-person and virtual participation. Individuals may undertake remote participation by activating the Zoom links found on the published agenda and on the town clerk's web portal. Viewing only is done by activating the live link at the top of the town clerk's meeting portal page. The online Zoom participation is being moderated by Peter of CTV tonight. For remote comment on a particular agenda item, please notify CTV via chat or the raise hand function relative to an agenda item so that comment can be made. Our practice to reduce waiting times for individuals is to advance such items on our meeting agenda if we are notified of the agenda item of interest. Commentators will need to provide name, agency if relevant, and the place of residence or business when they speak. With that, I think we can proceed to the first order of business, which would be the approval of the minutes for our January meeting that were distributed. Stephanie, did we have any revisions?
We had one comment for Susan, but I think we resolved that. So the minutes as circulated have no revisions on them.
So is there any further comments on the minutes? If not, I move their approval.
Second.
Seconded by Vicki. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. We are fortunate we don't have any demolition permit applications tonight. I will take a moment to insert a comment that some individuals, Stephanie might be aware of, that I have circulated proposals for providing for a pause of demolition applications when they are submitted for review. My perspective on the structure and process for the Landmarks Board is that we have an expedited process for demolishing historic buildings in the town of Southampton, and that something needs to slow them down, basically a speed bump. And other communities have organized the process by which when an application comes to the fore for review, the board determines whether or not it is significant enough of a application to demolish a significant enough building that it should be paused while further processes are undertaken. One of those processes is the ability to perhaps landmark, if it would qualify. Another process would be to have the public participate through a public hearing about a demolition application before the process would proceed further. And after that, the question would be whether or not in that process of pause and steps to undertake, the actual demolition would eventually take place, given all the judgments that would have to be rendered along the way. But it wouldn't be this kind of 45-day window to just provide an advisory opinion for a demolition application, it would be perhaps a 6-month delay or a 9-month delay to allow the process of a determination by the board of the significance and the participation of public opinion on the issue of demolition. So that hopefully will get up to the upper levels of town government in the month of March. David was going to participate in a discussion along with Kelly Doyle, the assistant town attorney on this. So just wanted to make you aware. If you have comments and opinions about it, I would suggest surfacing them and passing them around in terms of providing a basis for further discussion. I will send out some information that I sent to Stephanie about it, and you'll all be able to get some up-to-date kind of information about what's involved. So without any demolition permit applications, we can get to construction permit application. And I think given the fact that we have 2 major path applications on the agenda tonight, let's take the first one, 320 Majors Path, North Sea, which is the property that is outlined in the image here. This property is a former riding academy, or whatever you want to call it. The building involved appears to be once were stables, and in the middle is a 2-story house that exists there. The AYB of the building is 1929. Jeff has some alternative opinion, and I will get to it in a few minutes. There was controversy in the 1970s about this building. It had 4 apartments in it, 4 employees, as well as having the stable areas on each side. So, Jeff, you had some other dating for this?
Well, I just remember in my first go round with the Landmarks Board, which ended in 2012. Right before I left, before I came back, we toured this building. Wright and Company actually let us come over there because they were doing the reconstruction. And from what I remember, everything is new.
That's correct. This is all brand new. They built it exactly the same, but this, and that's why I'm going to recommend that we take it off the flag, take the flag off. This is brand new construction.
Okay, but it was never kind of documented in the assessor's record?
Yeah,
There has been a lot of construction on this property.
That C-shaped building is all entirely brand new.
and
The Landmarks Board reviewed this when they came in for the demolition.
there's a 2012 assessor's photo where you can see all the new plywood for that building being constructed. And Jeff and I, and then with Sally, the chairperson at the time, went, and I can remember her, and I can't find any record, so it might even be pre-digital, because I was looking for some type of report or a response, but that there was nothing left. But if you look at the photo, that's what really...
Yeah, there are photos in the assessor's records that show brand new construction taking place.
The only question I had was, and it's not part of the application, is if that barn might be 19, there's a little barn, it's not part of the application down to
Totally
the,
not.
at the bottom of the screen. That, keep going, yeah, that little, there's one right in that general, yeah, right, down, two more down. But it doesn't make any difference, it's not part of the that
No,
one.
it's not.
That's the only thing that, but for this one,
All right, so, with respect to our continuing to review this, the suggestion is it's not really worthy of any further discussion and comment. Is there any other problem if we just say, return it with a no objection that we receive the application, but
Right.
remove the flag?
Yeah.
From.
Remove the flag and change the AYB.
Right, okay. Okay, well, that wipes out one problem of Major's Path. Now we have the other one. Not a problem, actually. We have 292 Major's Path, which had been under some reflection for the possibility of landmarking before. And we have the applicant, Martin Schwartz, here tonight, who would like to at least present some thoughts about what a potential landmark designation might mean for the property that's involved. Martin, if you would, why don't you take a, bring it to this end over here so that the camera picks you up.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board. I am the owner of this property, and before we get into the specifics of the particular landmark, I do want to comment on the 320. I have seen it in its original condition years ago. It was a beautiful structure. Both the paddocks in the fields, the stables, and the office had original detailing. It's very unfortunate that it was allowed to be renovated as a kind of new build construction. At that time, I actually was working with someone who was interested in saving the property and had put together with the Peconic Land Trust a potential deal for the town to purchase the property. And we were very close to that sale. Unfortunately, there were some legal issues at the 11th hour, and that fell through at the very last second. Another property owner bought it, ran it as a horse farm for a bit, and then sold it to the previous two owners ago, who then did the renovation. So, which leads me to your other point. To introduce myself, I'm a restoration and building contractor. I've owned 292 Majors Path since the 90s. I haven't lived out here full-time until about a year and a half ago when I moved out. I ran a restoration and contracting business further west, but I was also on the executive board of the Montclair Historical Society for a number of years, and was the mayor's appointee to the planning board for some 8 years. So I'm very familiar with preservation laws and process, and I want to support the chair's intent to put a delay on knocking down buildings. We had such a law called a no knockdown law in force that was taken off. But the way to do that is to place into the zoning that you almost have to inventory the historic buildings and place that into the zoning so that an owner potentially buys would know that there's a chance that that structure could be landmarked. So it's a bit complicated, but I urge you to engage in that. On to the subject premises. This house, which I believe, which is built in the Italianate style, a period of architecture from 1853 to 1883, I thought was earlier, but the chair did some research, found that it was built at the very end of that period, which actually was surprising to me because the wood in the basement, which one would expect to see trees, was engineered machine wood, which explains the 1883 purchase. So you solved the mystery of why the framing is what it is there. The building, can we see? Yes. Oh, good. Okay, this is the original structure. It's a beautiful Italianate. It has a cupola, which still lives. They built, as I'm told, sometime in the early 1900s, a roof over the cupola. I suspect because the roof was what is leaded copper, crimped leaded copper, flat seamed roof, and it eventually started to leak and they couldn't do anything about it. So they just built a new roof on top of it. I think also styles have changed and they wanted a pitched roof. But that still lives under there, and the metal roof still lives. The backside, I've taken the roof off, but it's leaking into the house now, and I have to solve that problem. So there are some serious restoration issues for this house, but it can look like this again. We now have pictures that the descendants of the purchaser stroll up my driveway one day when I was sitting there getting very angry. I couldn't figure out what the porch posts were supposed to look like. And like manna from heaven, they just handed me pictures of what this used to look like. The house was owned for a long period of time by I might be mispronouncing, the Airwood family, and the gentleman owned a horse business, an equestrian business in New York City, I believe where ABC is located just off Central Park. And his family owned it through descendants up until sometime, I think, in the 50s, and then sold it off. But the descendants are still around, and they passed me pictures. There they are. But we have a pretty good record of the details that can be reconstructed. The porch, I have some of the moldings of the porch, so I can recreate that. But as I said, I'm a restoration and building contractor, so I see this as an opportunity to go at it again. I purchased the home with the intent of restoring it, and it was the Southampton Hunt and Riding Club for many years. I don't have access to the documentation that you do, and a report has to be written, obviously, on these details, but luminaries such as Jackie O rode there. We have a picture, I think, of her connected with leading her horse to the area. I just found another picture today. I just found this today. It was given to me, and I think that fence still lived up until 30 years ago somewhere. But this was found in the attic, essentially, about 30 years ago when we first got the house, and it was just given to me recently and reminded me that it existed. So clearly there was the house was intrinsically linked to the farm, which I believe at one point was some 200 acres, I've been told. And it certainly fits within the criteria of landmarking, the significance to the township in terms of cultural or social activity, all of it fits many of the criteria that falls under your ordinance and is reflective of the Secretary of the Interior's requirements for landmarking. So I urge you to support this. I want to restore it. I need the town's help to do it. It's in bad shape now, COVID, some vandalism, but that's what I'm hoping to do and work with the town to do it. Happy to take any questions.
I'll just say I've always been fascinated by the house driving down Nature's Path. So it's really interesting architecturally. I'm trying to think of a brief history in 2020 based on something that just somebody had made an inquiry about it. It's in AKRF, so it's part of our inventory. So,
No, you have an inventory of all the houses.
Pardon?
There is an inventory. Oh, good.
Yeah, we have an inventory.
Oh, good.
Yes.
It's really different.
Where's the cupola?
Some of them have been knocked down, but yours is, it's in,
Maybe?
well, ethics and do that, but that's
Oh, great.
the picture.
Well,
I need that back just because
Okay.
I'm taking my notes on it, but I would give it to you.
Yep. We'll get a copy.
Yeah, that's it. No.
Well, I was very disappointed that we weren't able to preserve the whole 10-acre situation there, because the woman who wanted to buy it wanted to keep it as a farm. So now it's been split up. There are multiple parcels. The south piece is now a tree farm, so it's actually opened the road up again, which is good. There's now an open view going down the road, and I expect to, when the house is presentable, to open it up in the front as well, so that there's a nice drive-by view.
It is rather thickly screened now.
Yeah.
If you can drive down, you can pass it very easily.
Given the way it looks, it should be screened until it's fixed. Somebody ran a deer took down about 30 feet of privet with a deer a couple of years ago. That was a problem. So yeah, that pitched roof will go, and the cupola will reappear. And a lot of work has to be done on the porch and the roofs. This is not an inexpensive undertaking.
Does that porch extend on what, two sides?
Two sides, yes, correct.
Just Ed has the articles also. The reason it's 1883 is because the original house burned down. There was an older house there. It was the Reeves house, and there's an article saying that. And Ed, you'll get all
I
that.
think he sent me something showing the builder of this house died, and I think that's when Martin Airwood purchased it.
Babcock.
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 Yeah, Babcock, yeah. Who was a major construction force in New York City, building seawalls and other stonework around basically, I think, Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Did he build the house for himself and his family, or did he build
Yes.
it for the Airwoods?
No, he built it for himself, and just when he got it done, he became ill in the house and died about 5 months later. And his wife then took over the house, and I didn't track how long she stayed or owned it, but I do have all the deeds that go up to about 1900 for the property that is associated with the house. So I've forgotten, because I did it about 2 years ago when you first approached me, and it's, slipped my mind in terms of the details, but I have them, and we can formulate them, and Susan is desperate to get a report done.
When I see a house and I like it, I mean, it's like, I want to do a history because it's worrisome that something could happen to it. So if you get a little bit of information, and then we got the inventory, of course, it got placed here. The only thing, and Ed may find it, I never could find out, is why it's called Major's Path. I went through every major, and I won't go through the list here that I could find, and none of them, I mean, there's a major, but it's a Halsey, but he wouldn't be taking that path, because, you know, it's over near the Halsey farm that Holly Hill is. But, and the only major I found, I think, was a Hewlett, and he was like with the British, so I don't think he was, but we may find out. That's not the point, but I would really like to find out why it's called Major's Path.
Me too.
It's a colonel, you know, there was they said it was, I can't remember the fellow's last name from up in North Sea, wrote on it, but he was not a major, he was a colonel, but we'll figure it out maybe.
One of the things that you're interested in doing is having an accessory building on the property.
I believe there was one, if you can go back to one of the pictures. I mean, it's speculation, is the barn that I think you mentioned in the wider picture. Not that, keep going. No, I think we're missing that one. It's the, there, you see in the far right corner? That, I mean, is that the building that is now on the, moved down to the other property? I'm not sure. But there clearly was a carriage house, which would make sense to this building. And so that seems to be, as you can see, there's no border between this house and the wider field. So this house clearly was the home for the entire area there. So yes, I'd like to add a carriage house. I have to work that through with the planning and zoning, and but that is an intention, and it would be, of course, done in the period style.
So what did that main roof was a low slope hip roof?
Yeah, it's a low slope hip
And it had a cupola up on top of it.
Exactly.
And it had that little gable over the two, yeah.
Exactly, yes. And it's a flat seam metal, 2x3 crimped metal, leaded copper. It's a leaded copper, I believe.
Yeah, usually it's turncoat iron, sheet iron.
Oh.
Or, I mean, well, you'll see if you get up into it, it's rusted out in places. But sheet iron had a, you know, they sold it and it was relatively cheap, but it would had a tin wash on it.
It could be that too.
And it looks like lead coat if it's not degraded. And
I tried to have somebody test it, and I couldn't.
Huh.
I didn't get anything. But I'm going to take a decaying piece and actually test it.
yeah, what would be fun to look too is some of those have the name embossed on the sheet metal.
Oh.
Like if you were buying 14 by 16 sheets, a lot of times it would have a little embossed name on it from some ironworks or something.
What is it? Iron what?
It's sheet iron,
Sheet iron with a.
but with a wash coat on it that kept it from rusting, but it always had to be painted. And they wanted you to paint it on the underside before you put it on and paint it on the outside.
Yeah, there's no paint, which leads me to believe it's leaded copper.
Well, it could be, I mean, but if you see it's rusted through, you know, you'll know for sure. But
okay.
And then if you're taking all that roof off, save us a few sheets of that. It'd be fun
I
to see.
don't want to take it off. I think it's usable. The top piece is usable. If I can put some kind of wash on it, there's a potential coating that I can that's clear, and then there is actually a product that is sort of a leaded copper. It's a leaded copper product that's liquid that you can put on top. So there's some products out there. My goal is to try and save, obviously for cost, but also for look.
Yeah.
You can't replicate the 2x3 seam crimping anymore. I mean, it's just
Oh, we can do that, but it's awfully expensive.
Yes.
Done it in the city,
Yeah.
not out here. Well, that's cool. That's a fine looking house. The veranda is really sweet. It's so tall,
Yes.
airy looking.
Have to go back to those porch posts. I think
Do you think it ever had a handrail all around that?
that's a
porch?
great question. You see that decayed thing right there?
Yeah.
I can't tell whether that is handrail or not. I've looked at maybe 50 Italian 8s to see if
Whatever, similar.
whether it did, and some of them have it and some of them don't. But that you can't tell that either because they could have lost it too.
Mhm. Well, it's a nice collection of early photographs. That one with the Model T sitting out in front, sort of nice.
I have the brackets. I have two of the brackets
No way.
that go on top of the porch posts.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, I think the owner before me, the porch was so decayed that they rebuilt it, but they didn't save anything for guidance. There's still some ghosting, so I can see. There's no handrail there, so should be determined.
Have you developed a specific set of plans for how you are looking to restore this house?
Not yet.
Okay.
I need to know if the town is going to work with me on landmarking before I get into how deep I'm going to get into it.
Yeah, because I mean we have landmark structures, pending restoration of various kinds, but it's usually we have the plans in hand, so we know what changes are going to be made to the structure.
But here I wouldn't be making changes. I'd be restoring what was.
Right, but that would entail removing this roof that's been placed over the cupola,
Correct.
correct?
Right.
And it would be replacing or replicating posts on the porch and
Correct.
probably similar other things.
Correct.
So,
Happy to get into that. If there's a consensus on the board that it would be landmarked and it would go to the town and we move ahead, that will tell me what I can get to do. And the good news here is that I don't have to hire a contractor. The town funds would be well spent in this case. So yeah, if the town will work with me, I will put together what sequence of activity will be done in what order, and hopefully we'll end up looking like what we had before.
Okay.
Which is the goal.
Stephanie, if I can, one of the reasons for tonight's meeting was to try to get a consensus, unofficial, from the board whether you would consider landmarking this if it were brought back to its original look, so that he could go to the zoning board with some sort of a letter of support, similar to what we did at Line Point Road. It wouldn't be an actual landmarking designation or recommendation, but it would be kind of an endorsement. And then if he's able to get the variances from the zoning board based on the condition of landmarking it, then he could go forward and apply for a carriage house, which would help him be able to finance the renovation.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, and a 2-track system also with the town doing, I believe, the easement, landmark easement. So that's the intent.
Yeah. So you need the easement basically to move forward with this work.
I need the easement to move forward with the work, yes.
Okay.
And the easement just pertains to the carriage house, is that?
No,
No.
the easement is on the entire property.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, it's a facade easement, so it would be on the
Okay. Oh, that's
facade
what
of the
you're talking
building.
about, the
It
funds.
could be more
Got it.
than just the facade.
Right.
Could govern the surrounding landscape.
Okay.
Correct.
So my sense of it is the house in its classic imagery is a striking piece of architecture for that period of time. And I think that if we prepare a report and get into a deeper understanding and context, associated with the surrounding property and the horse industry in the turn of the century and middle of the 20th century, that it probably would justify it very clearly. I'd be favorable to the effort. At this point, I don't see anything myself that I don't know if anybody else does. The condition of the house, interior-wise, is structurally, basically sound enough for renovation.
Yes.
My sense was, that the exterior porch and so on might have been in tough shape at one point. I don't know.
Yes. It needs it's nothing. It needs a little jacking up to re-level the pitch of the porch, and there's some rot there, but there's nothing significant. I mean, I actually wouldn't have to touch the structure at all if I really wanted it. The floors are, in some cases 4 inches off. I might do a little. I had an engineer come in, and I can do a little jacking on the main beams to straighten some doors out if I want to, which, it's aesthetics. It's not falling down, let's put it that way. Yeah. And the moldings are, and what I really have to do is address the roof. Water's coming in a couple of spots. It's rotted some of the, pieces of the plaster molding in a few spots. So I really have to get to this. Time is now of the essence to move on this. That's why I need the town's help, essentially, to save this house. That's really what. So I want to operate on a 2-track system, I think, as David mentioned. Get the landmarking, get an easement with the carriage house, and so hopefully we can all work together and end up with a beautiful house there, and people can drive by and see it, and I'll cut down, a lot of the front hedge, and people will go, oh, wow, this is the way it used to be.
Is there a need for changing the energy consumption characteristics of the house?
There's a need for a brand new energy system. The boiler is not functional at this point. Yeah, and I'm kicking that around right now.
Are the windows original?
Some are, some are not.
Yeah, they look like 2/2s on the first one. Well, maybe on the
Yeah,
other one.
I'm sorry. The windows are all original. The glass panes, some are light wavy, some are newer. Yeah. And the difference between the two is not that significant. So when that's not really, it's the window. All the windows survive. Yeah. And some of the windows, and most of the window hardware.
And the shutters, are they still there?
I have shutters for the cupola. I don't have shutters for the rest of the house, but those are pretty easily made. They're not. There's nothing. In fact, the ones in the cupola give you the idea of what was elsewhere.
What is the siding? Is it a drop siding or novelty or?
It's a cedar. It's a cedar siding, 5-inch old cedar, thicker than the stuff they sell today.
Yeah.
So you have to get that milled specially.
Yeah. Cool.
So do I sense that there's a positive attitude here for proceeding forward with the ideas that have been laid out for this? So,
Yeah.
Great.
Build a cool looking carriage house that picks up the.
That's exactly what
That'll be fun.
That's what I intend to do. I have to just slip it in somewhere. It's a problematic lot, given there's no side yard where the carriage house should go, and as you see from where I believe the building used to be, it didn't matter. It was going east, and that was part of the field. So it was the carriage house of the home. So I have to work in a tight quarter, and hopefully, because of the limitation, the zoning board will go along.
okay, well, we'll probably be doing some research on it.
Do we need a letter, you think, or?
Actually, the horse.
We'll compose a letter,
Where's the
a
house?
favorable attitude to his
Oh, this one?
effort to
No, that's a good
restore
question.
292 Majors
It's
Path.
probably
Great.
right there, so. it would be-
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
Very nice
you.
to meet
Thanks,
you.
this will be fun. Good
Nice to
fun.
meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Oh, so there's a track and then
Yeah,
there's
this
a
is
track.
part of the-
Okay.
So, with that, I think we can proceed to take up
Date.
18 Klein
was already
Point
going
Road,
out.
which
Still blankets.
Susan sent around a revised report. And just to refresh everyone, at our last meeting, Susan had kind of capitalized on her previous work for the Diamond Farmhouse. And in the discussion, we talked about basically for the barn, which has been converted in use and has some altered characteristics that that changed the kind of dimensions of things, and we would be looking at the cultural significance of the property as well. So.
I just want to add quickly, with all due respect, Vicki and I collaborated, so it was partly my work, partly hers. We put it together, readjusted it, but particularly the cultural, all the things with Dorothy and with Hal, and Vicki is the one who put all that together and we fit it into the other reports. I just wanted to clarify that I can't take credit for.
Well, I just wanted to add that the applicant, the owner, Troy Buckner, is here with us tonight, and so he's available to answer any questions that you might have, because we'd like to take a vote this evening. I wanted to clarify also that it's the applicant's, can you hear me?
Well, the
Not
microphone
good.
is better.
Okay, thank you. It's the applicant's objective to landmark the barn so that its heritage can be protected and maintained, and to make a separate application to the town to subdivide the property so that the historic Diamond Barn would be on one parcel, and then the residence built by Hal Buckner and Dorothy Lichtenstein would be built in 2014, would be on a separate parcel. Now, the updated report that Susan circulated over the weekend includes some architectural plans, I think that were done in October of '88, for the conversion of the barn to a residence and studio. They were prepared for the artist and writer Lynn Hefner-Ferrante, and they're provided for reference only, really, because it appears that the only thing that was actually incorporated from into the construction, the conversion of this barn to studio, from these drawings was this little shed dormer roof, and really nothing else. And there were no decipherable notes that I could find on the drawings.
2 more pages.
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah, if you can go down, I think it's the next one. Yeah.
One more.
One more. There you go.
That one right there.
Yeah, and you can see the little shed roof there. That exists, yes. However, as I was saying, I couldn't find any decipherable notes anyway on the drawings for the first floor that showed or mentioned the windows that were salvaged from the West Hampton Free Library on the drawings, even though Lynn Hefner-Ferrante confirmed verbally to Troy Buckner that, in fact, those windows did come from the library. So we do believe that the Diamond Barn meets the town requirements for designation as a landmark by virtue of possessing historic interest and value as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history of the East End, and is identified with local historic personages. Shall I read all the landmark criteria into the record, or just our recommendation?
Just probably the recommendations.
Well, we do believe that several of the standards are met with this application. The property does possess a special character because of the successful conversion in use from agricultural barn to studio and home for a succession of prominent visual artists. The property also possesses historic interest of value as part of the economic history of this locality by virtue of the barn serving the long-term dairy and field crop agriculture of the Diamond family. Now, the Diamond family has been associated with this property at this location for over 240 years, once owning over 100 acres on or about Flying Point Road, Seven Ponds Road, and David White's Lane. Charles Conklin Diamond was considered to be one of the most progressive farmers in Southampton, and his son C. Edwin, who was a Cornell University grad, continued his architectural projects, research projects, even after the sale of the dairy operations. And C. Edwin, as we mentioned, I think last month, was also notable for being a director of the First National Bank here in Southampton, and he swapped some of his land with the county so that the Southampton bypass, Route 39A as we call it, could be built on a portion of Flying Point Road near the farm. And the property also possesses historic interest of value as part of the cultural history of the locality and region, with the Diamond Barn as the studio and residence of artists who are active in the visual arts, including Lynn Hefner Ferrante, artist, writer, gallery owner, and art school operator on Long Island. Ms. Ferrante was the one who converted the barn into an art studio and a residence, initiating the Diamond Barns into the cultural history of the East End. Ron Buckner is a photographer of New York City and the East End scenes, was an exhibition leader of the East End Photographers Group. Hal Buckner is a sculptor and exhibitor in local cultural venues, as well as nationwide. And Oscar Molina is the artist currently in residence. Molina is an artist, a sculptor, he's a gallery owner, and he exhibits nationwide. And finally, the property is identified with an historic personage, Dorothy Lichtenstein, who is the widow of pop artist Roy Lichtenstein. She was a philanthropist, noted philanthropist, particularly to the Smithsonian Museum, here locally to Stony Brook University, to their art and film programs in particular, and to arts institutions and museums around the country. She was also president of the Roy Lichtenstein Foundation and trustee of the Parish Museum. It is for these reasons that we believe the landmark status we recommend and support.
So, with this distillation that we have here of the reasons for it are based on Susan and Vicky's report. And we have the series of proposed findings. We should adopt them in order to recommend to the town board. Is there any discussion or any further review of this that you feel is needed?
Again, Troy is here. Troy Buckner is here. Hal Buckner's son.
Well, do I hear a motion to adopt?
I'd like to make a motion.
To adopt the report and these findings for forwarding to the town board.
Seconded.
I don't know if I should say.
I think I was first.
Tim is first, and we'll call Jeff second.
I'm glad that there are multiple seconds.
And I just want to quickly clarify that I did update it today to put an arrow where the shed dormer is to clarify the art studio. I made a couple tweaks that Vicky's already mentioned, and that will be final draft number 2. So,
Right.
Okay, we have a motion, and without further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is adopted, and the recommendation will be forwarded to the town board reasonably soon. So.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all your work.
Okay. Back to the top of the agenda. 49 Depot Road, West Hampton. We have a report provided by Stephanie and Bill.
So I'm going to proceed with the report as Stephanie and I first put it together, noting that it's subject to change from information that Ed found, I believe, earlier today. So the AYB of the residents on this property is 1900, although our research indicates that it's probably more of a circa 1928 construction date. The proposed work includes adding an enclosed porch to the residence, adding a 6-foot-high fence, and the removal of an existing wood deck. All of this work is already well underway. The subject property is not identified in the 2014 AKRF Town of Southampton Historic Resources Survey, and the subject property is not identified in the historical profiles of Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton. The windows all appear to be replacements in the 2011 GIS photos and have recently been replaced again, and it appears that the sizes have been adjusted as well. The wood deck has already been removed. There are 2 one-story wings that appear to be previous additions on the rear and one side of the house. The masonry cellar stairs appear to have been previously added and are made up of miscellaneous masonry units. Several temporary accessory structures on the property are to be removed. The 6-foot-high fence can be seen in the photos and pretty much is already completed. The property does not appear to meet any criteria for consideration as a landmark under the Town of Southampton Code. The only 2 identified historic resources in proximity to this property are each about a quarter of a mile away. The 1873 map shows Station Road had been opened to provide access to the recently constructed Long Island Railroad station noted as Depot on the map, but Depot Road had not yet been opened. No development was apparent on the location of the subject property. On the 1902 map, the subject property appeared to be owned by William Bishop, but again, no development was shown. On the 1916 map, William Bishop was deceased, and ownership of the property had passed to Jack Shearer, and the property continued to show no development on it. We don't see any development until the 1930 aerial photo, which shows that the property had been cleared and in apparent agricultural use, as were some of the many surrounding properties. Some development was apparent along Depot Road, and a dwelling appears present on the far west side of the field that includes the subject property. We believe that this is the current dwelling, as subsequent aerial photos continue to show the dwelling in the same location. Record of a mortgage issued to a J. Oramic by the Heelbarb Corp. In the amount of $2,000 was noted in the September 27th, 1928 issue of the County Review. The mortgage references lots 1 to 5 of Lilac Farms in West Hampton, which may have been the subject property. A clipping from the September 27, 1945 issue of the County Review in the Satisfied Mortgages column notes that this mortgage had been satisfied. Affidavits in the town records document that Han Oramic and his wife Anna Oramic owned the property until August 17, 1950, at which time ownership passed to Edward T. Finnegan. On April 12, 1956, ownership was transferred to Margaret and Thomas Finnegan, husband and wife. On October 30th, 1970, title was transferred to Robert Finnegan and his sister Rosalie Finnegan Talty. This affidavit information was provided by Robert G. Finnegan, son and executor of the Robert F. Finnegan, to Robert X. T. was the executor, to the Robert F. Finnegan property, and he had died in March 13th, 2008. Rosalie Finnegan Talty had died in August 3rd, 1995. No other records of the Almeric family were found in the Long Island surname database, the family ancestry, or the New York State Historic Newspapers website. Family members with that name are not recorded as buried in the West Hampton Cemetery. Almeric is a perhaps German surname, although Ed seems to have shown that they were actually born in Poland, but suggesting that they may have immigrated from those countries. Based on the map and aerial photo evidence, as well as the mortgage information, it appeared that Han and Anna Almeric may have purchased the property and or constructed the dwelling in about 1928 with funding from the Heelbarb Corp. The Heelbarb Corporation was a local firm formed in 1926 by several businessmen from West Hampton Beach and its vicinity for the purpose of selling and developing property. The unusual name was derived from combining the businessmen's initials. The founders are reported to include E.H. Rogers Sr., who was president of the board, L.E. Pearson, H.H. Bishop, A.J. Halleck, and E.O. Fordham. The three well-known existing buildings were constructed by the Heelbarb Corporation in West Hampton Beach, including the Main Street Theater, the patio building, and a store at the corner of the Main Street and Sunset Avenue that was operated for many years as Speed's Drugstore. Based on the newspaper clippings, it seems that the Heelbarb Corporation may have funded the purchase of the subject property and or the construction of the subject dwelling. In summary, the dwelling on the subject property may have been constructed in about 1928 for Han and Anna Almeric with financing from the Heelbarb Corporation. The property appears to have been part of a farm known as Lilac Farm at that time. The property was later owned by members of the Finnegan family. All of the exterior finishes have been replaced, including the roofing, the siding, all of the doors and windows. Although the original mass of the dwelling appears to remain identifiable, the rear and side wings of the dwelling appear to have been previous additions. The new addition is being added on as well. The subject dwelling is on a flag lot and is not visible from Depot Road. And we felt that the Landmarks Board should have no objection to this construction application, as the dwelling appears to retain no historical exterior fabric.
My impression is it was, it's very small in its original character.
Yes.
Yes.
Almost non-house-like for a building like that. And it was located at the end. This was once a dirt road here, as if it was kind of a agricultural shed.
Mm-hmm.
There's no basement. There is now a basement under it.
Yes, there is now a basement under it,
But
and
is
there's,
it a full basement?
No.
No.
It's mostly crawl space. I think they dug the basement purely to put in the mechanical equipment for heating and hot water.
yeah. There's some signs in there of some older masonry materials, but it looked like, yeah, most of it was newer.
Well, I think it accurately describes the house, the pedigree or lineages involved with it. They need to be tweaked a bit, but is there any further consideration of this house? If not, then it's no objection, and if Stephanie, either you or Bill would
Yep.
handle the response. So thanks. Okay. 19 Bellows Pond Road. We have been here before. I sent out, I think it was a 2017 review for an addition from a board member at that time, and basically it did not show any historical character to the house, and it's kind of a small house as well, as I recall, and it was built as a seasonal house without, I think, a year-round occupancy, although that may now be a different circumstance. Let me see if I can bring that picture up here. Yeah, this was the house, not a good resolution of the picture, but it's very small, and it's this neighborhood is not distinguished at all either. And I would say that should be no objection to this.
I have no objection, but it seemed as almost a demolition because it said 40% of the original is going to be replaced, and then there are an addition on each side. So, but I still have no objection either way.
It's a matter of the word at the top of the application. So. Yeah, sometimes renovation is quoted as demolition as well as reconstruction. Okay, I'll follow that response there. 159 Lynn Avenue. This one was, I sent around a set of notes about the property. It's not in AKRF, not in Hampton Bay's historical profiles. The assessor has an AYB on it of 1900, which is interesting how they arrive at an AYB of 1900. If you go through a lot of the dating, my experience of it is, if it says 1900, that's because they thought they spotted something on the 1902 Hyde real estate map. And there's a whole bunch of dates for 1915 for a lot of properties that are included. And just as a reference point here to indicate this same neighborhood, if you see there are 4 houses here on this property below the highlighted one. And this is the 1916 Hyde real estate map. What's the AYB on all of the current 4 houses that are also located to this day? 1915. So it's not based on some kind of testimony or anything else. It's kind of a guesstimate based upon the mapping that was done by the Hyde Company at the time that they did it. So the application for 159 is for some construction. This is the house here. Sits close to Shinnecock Bay. And let's see if I get a better front vision of it. This is the house here, and there is a second garage and caretaker apartment in the second building there. So this is AYB 1900. I've not been able to trace it back in terms of the record of ownership, It appears to be the house associated with George Foster around 1900. Let me get my bearing here. That is this location at the bottom of Lynn Avenue. It shows two buildings, one close to Shinnecock Bay and one recessed, which could be that building that is now a garage and second floor apartment in the accessory building. This house has been in the same family for now 80 years, about. The Brown family, which Howard Brown bought the house on Lynn Avenue for $12,500 in 1936. He was a lawyer on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, in I guess corporate law, very affluent. He and his family were Manhattan-based. This was their summer home. Periodically in the Southampton press, you received news of basically the presence of the Browns, their children, in Compog, as it was called. Also in 1956, he bought a portion of the property next door to increase the footprint of the site that he was on. And in the property records, you see the Brown family doing various additions and changes over the years. That area of Shinnecock Bay was active in real estate development in the early 1900s by a whole bunch of politically connected people out of Brooklyn and Manhattan. And as some may know, the 1920s were filled with usually Democratic Party politicians summering in Hampton Bays and residing at the Canoe Place Inn at the time and the Canoe Place cottages that are still in existence today. So other than that period from 1916 to 1933, I can't directly connect it. But basically, I don't see that there is much change. What the prospect is that they are going to, if you look at the visual here, they're removing these two portions, a one-story and two-story wing in the back that are going to be enlarged in volume for domestic residential purposes. The house itself has been modified to some degree too. If you look at some of the windows in the house on the sides of the house, you can see that that too has been altered. Unfortunately, this doesn't show the perspective picture that we'd like to have here, so we'll have to live with it. So the house has been modified, and this is just another element of its modification to maybe I got the directional back here. Yes, this is the pieces that will be demolished and reconstructed in larger form, basically on the same footprint, same size floor areas. These are not original windows for the house in terms of the look that they have. There's a very large picture window to be found in the house. So, my recommendation is basically not to.
Just as an aside, I got the ZBA agenda for February 20th, and this is on it. I was surprised because of an 18% increase in square footage or volume.
Might trigger one of the.
It triggered something.
Yeah.
Not that I pictured the way it was described, it not being that large of an increase, but I still agree with you.
Well, they have mathematical formulas.
So I guess it fit into the zoning
so.
issue. Because the property was 4.1 acres, so it increased, didn't seem like, I mean, what I saw would be that much.
Ed, can I ask a question? What they're changing, is that original to the house?
No, I believe that these were additions later
Additions.
on. Yeah, that they were not, but I didn't find anything in the record to.
And the rear dormer, will that be impacted?
Talking about this dormer
Yeah.
there. If they basically it would not seem to do that.
But they're on the same footprint making
It's
that?
going to be a one-story
Oh, one-story.
replacement
Okay.
Yeah.
leading to the two-story volume behind that.
Yeah, the elevations don't show any change on that main volume, including the dormers.
Just curious, thank you.
Yeah, let's see if we. Yeah, as you can see here, the windows suggest modification from a while back. And they have the elevations here.
Yeah, they're right at the end of the package. There you go.
Yeah. So the only, the one thing that did occur to me is that they're having the vertical siding on the addition kind of, it's not my aesthetic, but that was not the issue in terms of the, historic character of the building. So if there's no problem with that, I will respond with a no objection on that. 165 Ponquag Avenue, revisiting solar panels. This is St. Mary's Episcopal Church. The historic survey of the town identified the church as a historic resource, and it gives its description. And in theory, suggested it was eligible to be considered for landmark designation. So what is proposed is the placement of solar panels on the roof of the church. Let's see here. And this is a referral from the planning board. So, let me get see if I get a visual photograph here for consideration here.
Can you pull the window so you can find that red X?
That's what I'm looking for, is
Yeah,
the X up in the corner here. There we go. Now we get So this is the aerial for the church. And we look at the let's see if I can get these two lined up here.
They're being mounted on the flat roof section.
Yes. In the back.
So you can get the approximate feel where the solar panels will be installed. The visual aspect of the church, this is Ponquag Avenue here, which is the major thoroughfare going by, riding by. The portion where the solar panels will be sitting is on this portion of the structure. And if I sent around the sustainability section about solar installations for buildings, and what it emphasizes is minimize the visibility problem by not making them vertical, keeping them as flat as you can to the roof shape, and also that as an sustainable energy project, it should be probably the last one that should be considered by any party installing it, but we don't know whether there is other problems with that. The Secretary of Interior's sustainability documents generally recognize the validity of installing them. We've struggled with this problem on houses and roof of houses of historic character in our communities. And we've tried to do the same things, I think, when we've had these prior proposals of keeping them in the less visible environment for any installation.
This is ideal.
Yeah. So this is not, this is a question of, do we have comments about it from the planning board? Do we want to say there is a problem? We don't see a problem?
No, they located them in the most minimal way. They will not be visible unless you're flying yourself or have a drone. There should be no objection to this.
Yes.
Is that the
Yes.
consensus of the board? Okay, so.
And I agree, but do you think we should include that they follow the positive example? Should the zoning board get a copy possibly of what the secretary, or not?
I think just the commentary.
Okay, that's fine.
Summarized as.
I'm okay with
Yeah.
that.
We'll refer to it that we generally kept in mind the guidelines of our Secretary.
I just thought about the ones that we don't get to see and they do, that they might have a little background. It's up to you.
What do you think the longevity of these solar panels are? Bill, you got any? I've heard optimistic suggestions that they last 25 to 30 years, which seems doubtful. But I don't even think a wind farm turbine lasts that long.
Right. I mean, the solar panels used to be about 10 years. Now they're looking at generally around 20.
What? I've got to 20, okay. Yeah, I was thinking it closer to 10, but that sounds about right.
I don't know if this project is being financed with any state or federal subsidies, but the flow of subsidy funds for solar installations has been cut off in the past week, so there might be some
There
penny
wasn't-
pinching going on with respect to.
There wasn't much to begin with.
Yeah, so.
What was that, federal or state money?
I think the state gets a
Gave it.
portion of the money from
the-
the federal government, and then also the federal government does have its own incentive elements there. So, do we have somebody online?
Yes, this is Beth from Sun Nation. I was just going to comment that they are warranted for 25 years, the solar panels, to answer your question.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other information to indicate about the project?
The project is being installed on flat racking, so it will be as flat to the roof as possible to minimize any viewing from the street.
Okay, that's good to know.
And they are eligible. They are grandfathered in since they signed their contract last year. They are still eligible to apply for the direct
Losing your
benefits for
voice.
their tax incentive as a nonprofit.
There's nonprofit, they're eligible for some grant.
But they have paused anything going forward if it was signed from here on forward.
Okay, so with that, we will respond to the planning department with no concern, and it appears that they are visually minimized according to the expectations for historic properties.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, so 292, 85 Eastway, Shinnecock Hills. I haven't reviewed anything on this. Was there?
I thought there was recent communication that the current owner was contemplating applying to landmark it. But I don't think we've received anything.
Okay, well,
Maybe you were thinking of doing a site visit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the email from the gentleman, Mr. Bradley, indicated he was looking at purchasing 85 East Way. And he wanted to know what its landmark status was. He says, I know it is eligible and should be landmarked. I would love to save it and return it to its original glory. If it is landmarked, would I be able to enlarge one or two windows at the rear of the house as not to disturb the original curb appeal of the structure, and replace all siding and roof with new cedar shake? So he's making an inquiry as to whether if he does these things, he would be potentially eligible for landmarking, but that's all the information we have.
I think there was contemplated a site visit. I remember our conversation.
yeah, so, okay, well, we'll have to follow up on communication on that, so. Okay, 4 Beaver Dam Road is sitting behind 65 Old Riverhead Road in terms of getting everything written and drafted. And hopefully I'll be able to get those done by the end of this week. I expect some free time later this week. 520 Montauk Highway, Shinnecock Hills is in suspended animation, as is Stony Brook Southampton Windmill. And I expect probably that the same conditions hold true for 11 Walnut Avenue, East Quogue, and 149 South Country Road, Remsenburg. Those recommendations being connected to a easement on the property or facades of the houses.
With the windmill at the campus, is that dependent on working out a lease arrangement for the CPF?
The last I heard was that they needed to have the meets and bounds of the property established for it, and that was dependent upon communications with appropriate Stony Brook officials as well. But Stony Brook officials have had a big turnover. Last year, the president left, and everything got kind of suspended in midair. We did have a visit with then town board member Tommy John Schiavone to the site. He's now in a position to press a different button to try and perhaps get things moving in a direction. So,
yeah, a carpenter we're working with in West Hampton Beach on the windmill said he was approached, but he didn't say who by, to possibly work on that windmill. And but it was pretty preliminary, I suppose, right now.
Okay. I circulated some service resolutions for our departing board members. And they're just to provide recognition on paper that these individuals serve for a period of time. And let me see if I bring them up. I meant to bring them to the January meeting, and I forgot to do that. So basically what we have here is whereas Martha Green of Bridgehampton was appointed a member of the Town of Southampton Landmarks and Historic Districts Board in 2019, and whereas Martha chose not to seek reappointment at the end of a term in December 2024, and whereas the members of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board have valued her participation and service in the interest of Southampton, the town of Southampton, and its goal of preserving the town's historic character, now therefore be it resolved, the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board expresses its gratitude for her service and hereby memorializes her work. And I would move that motion to adopt the resolution, seconded by Stephanie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And we have here the right size. Whereas Barbara Roberts of North Haven was appointed a member of the Town of Southampton Landmarks and Historic Districts Board in 2022, And whereas Barbara has chosen not to seek reappointment at the end of her term in December 2024, and whereas the members of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board have valued her participation and service in the interest of the town of Southampton and its goal of preserving the town's historic character. Now therefore be it resolved, the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board expresses its gratitude for her service and hereby memorializes her work. A motion? Motion by Vicky, seconded by Susan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. To also just follow up one other thing, the town board did reduce the number of memberships from 11 down to 9. And in that public hearing moment, I suggested that should the occasion arise, that they could consider bringing it down to 7 like the other land management boards. But that's just something that was suggested they keep in mind as a future possibility. So, okay. So do we have anything else? We have, there is a
Maintenance grant, North Sea Schoolhouse, is that on this one or not?
Did they get back?
Yes, we received an application for the North Sea Schoolhouse.
Yeah, that's scheduled for March.
Yeah, it didn't make it for this agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scheduled for March.
So it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Or the shovel. So, yes, that's an application for insulating the ceiling. They also had talked about the possibility of the future of redoing the windows. I believe some of the windows are really sealed shut, not operating, and that's a problem. And we did have a conversation relative to a suggestion Julie made to North Sea about keeping the heat on to some degree during the winter, otherwise the plaster will really go to pot in the building. And I mentioned that that was in fact a very good suggestion, having seen what happens to plaster in houses that don't have heat on during the winter. So, there is a National Association of Preservation Commission webinar on roadside architecture.
Neon signs or something?
On
Neon
when?
signs?
What's that?
I think it's neon signs.
Neon signs and roadside architecture.
It's on neon signage, I think.
A neon sign, yeah. Oh, is it neon sign?
So that was my
It's like
understanding.
roadside.
And roadside
And
architecture, yeah, roadside.
Yeah, it's both.
Okay.
So that's Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, okay, so we are reminded of that. And everyone presumably has mastered the access to the sign-on procedures for persons from the town of Southampton. So, okay, good. Absent any other business?
I'm working on the summary and of just the construction and demolition, and I was gonna have it out before this meeting, but it seemed every time I went to do it, something happened, but I'll try to get it out this week. I just have to count.
I should mention that Julie and I had a Zoom conversation meeting with individuals who are interested in a residential historic district for the community of Bridgehampton. There's been some energy being put into it by a number of people. So we'll see where that goes, and probably might hear more about that. But what Susan mentioned, one of the questions that was raised was the accuracy of the existing inventory in AKRF for the historic properties. Julie offered to identify the ones in Bridgehampton that she's aware of that have been
That were left off.
and also now demolished.
Oh, yeah. Sadly.
That a lot of things that you might try to define for a historic district now, 10 years later from that study, have become much more problematic in terms of their existence or alterations. So your statistics do have some great value down the road here. So. In fact, when we get to when we get to
just very quickly, out of the construction, we had 56, and 15 of them were work done. So that, but no, we'll wait for that.
well, one of the things
That's like about a third.
where your work will be very important is when we're arguing for change in code to allow the pause process or slow process for demolition applications, kind of information about how those historic resources that we have reviewed have disappeared. You have the numbers from a long period of time.
I think this year, which is unusual, but I think we had 28 demolition applications, and I believe 3 of them disappeared. 3 were without review. But I'll get that hopefully by the end of the week. So.
Well, the real question is whether we objected or not to those historic properties.
Well, they were already gone by the time we
Yeah.
reviewed them on those 3 particular ones. But anyways, that's.
I found kind of interesting to find where you're coming down a road and there's this house is on the resources, the next one isn't, the next one is, and the one that was in the middle that was historic, that's not on the AKRF, got demoed. So I thought that was just very interesting that they missed it on the AKRF list and then it got demolished because it wasn't flagged as being historic. And it was right in between 2 houses of the same that were, I don't know how they.
It should have been.
How they missed them when they were right next to
It would have been an AKRF just by the AYB.
But they weren't. Like they're missing. Like on Lumber Lane, it was like 51, 53, and 55. 53 was demolished but built at the same time. Because I had the luxury of going through and then even seeing things that got work that had been done. I knew when the work, had been done prior to 2014, so I knew that those dormers didn't exist, on a building that's historic.
AYB was on it because it should have been flagged even if it wasn't in AKR.
I don't know if it was flagged or not, but it got demoed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
I don't know.
But if it had the AYB was correct, we should have reviewed it.
Right. I just don't know why it was left off the AKRF. But I mean, some of them down flag lots and those kind of things, but this is, they're sprayed out on the road.
I know Bridgehampton in particular was very meticulously covered, so I'm not sure why that happened. Not by me.
I went through, so I have a list of the houses that were left off of it.
Well, we also are at the point where that survey is 10 years old.
10 years old.
And it's got some, quote, refreshing elements of it, as we went along. Improper flags are removed and other things discovered. So it's an imperfect system, certainly.
Of course, yeah. There's a lot of resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question. If you're trying to extend the period to prevent demolition, what kind of opposition do you since I'm new to the board, what kind of opposition do you run up against from the public when you bring up, wanted to have like a 9-month moratorium or 6-month or something? Is there?
Well, that remains to be seen. The question is, pointing out that certainly the work of trying to preserve the historic character of the community requires some muscle to it. And what we have is a system in which, one, we do research for which we are not probably adequately recognized for, in order to try to educate somebody about the historic significance of property. And we send off the report, and in most cases, the house gets torn down, and what work has been done by us has become insignificant, gets flushed down the pipe, so to speak, with the demolition of the house. So providing, there may be opposition, certainly, but providing a waiting period where you have steps intervening for consideration of how important this house is, both from historic research point of view and from public input point of view, would, I think, make speculative developers take more, would probably pause them a little bit from considering buying a property just to flip it with a brand new house by tearing down the old one. And that's, it's kind of shaving off a little bit of the economic dynamic that's associated with real estate out here in the Hamptons and the East End, to try and provide that extra effort at preservation. We, did have the imposition or establishment, I should say, of a historic district. Did not receive much pushback from that when that was established. And basically it was a process of education, taking a long period of time. It was first suggested in 2017, and it was 2022 by the time it got done, although COVID had something to do with the delay in between. But there was outreach and education about it, and I think if the communities who are concerned about their community identity, are aware of it and what the issues are.
We talked about this in West Hampton, trying to do some in West Hampton Beach, and I talked to a lot of people, just people I know or run into, and some people don't know anything about historic preservation or historic buildings. I get an amazing amount of people screaming that, taking away all of our rights. I worked hard to buy this property, and I'll be damned if I'm going to have somebody take away my ability to do what I want to with it, include tearing it down. It's the usual sort of an argument. And I'm surprised how many people I run into there. But most of the ones I'm talking to don't have historic houses. They have, just modern conventional houses. So.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
That's good. Anything else to consider? Without anything else, the meeting is adjourned.
Hey.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Can I get did he send us a copy of the solar?